Erroneous visual blood effect. Shout out to you guys for teaching me how to pronounce erroneous correctly, by the way. I've never heard that word spoken in real life. So they say if you mispronounce a word and
So I think he's talking about the blood effects that were playing on your screen client side, but no hits were registering. And I think that this was a result of, once again, like client side code that is firing off without the confirmation from the authoritative server of the game state. And the blood effect is more of like a byproduct or like a side effect that allows you to kind of see like, oh, even though it says I'm hitting him, I'm not hitting him for whatever reason according to the game.
man, I just cannot believe they tweeted this and that's all they said. They didn't say anything about the horrendous netcode, the low tick servers, the skill-based damage rumors, nothing, nada, zip.
Yeah, so like we've identified an issue that could result in erroneous visual blood effects when damage was not actually dealt while shooting at enemies in all modes. Yeah, so basically like I guess they're avoiding talking about it. So no matter how you slice it, like it's bad, right? Because it's either bad netcode, it's like low quality servers that aren't scaled up enough horizontally or vertically to where they're like cheapskating you guys on the servers. Because it's like, once again, the bottom line kind of comes back to like, why did my hit not register? So it could be a result of, all these crappy servers and poor netcode. It could also be a result of skill-based damage. And then the byproduct and the side effect is that you're just seeing it now on your screen where it looks like you hit somebody and the blood animation played, but the server is telling you didn't, whereas you might not have noticed it as much had their servers been better or had the netcode been a little better, so where it wouldn't have been as noticeable.
Visual blood effects like it's our fault. I can't get over it. I cannot fucking get over it, man. What? So today, wouldn't you know it, they did something about that visual blood effect that is supposedly erroneous. The catch is they didn't mention it anywhere in the patch notes. They put out a rather big patch today addressing some visual recoil things and changing some weapon balance things, and yet nothing was said about this change. It was
Yeah, I mean, normally when you would have release notes, you would include like feature changes, nerfs and buffs, and then bug fixes. So I'm surprised they wouldn't have included this in like a bug fixes section.
just kind of
Especially since they brought it up like in the first place.
stealthily applied. Why would they do that? And what am I talking about? Well, viewer, without further ado, let's just...
I mean, they could be avoiding it to like keep attention away from it, so people don't know if it's fixed or not, and they hopefully just forget about it, as opposed to if they included it in the patch notes. Maybe they had this idea that, oh, if we include it in the patch notes, people might be looking out for it more and analyzing what the fix is, et cetera, et cetera. But it kind of seemed to have backfired on them, where because they didn't include it in the patch notes for whatever reason, right? Like, it might not be that deep. They might have just not included it in the patch notes because like they just didn't think to include it in the patch notes. But it's having like the opposite effect of people are like kind of wondering, well, why isn't it in the patch notes? So is there something else going on?
Just show you the motherfucking meat and potatoes. And at this point, the potato is fucking burnt and the meat is beyond well done. But let's just fucking do it. Meat and potatoes right here. Here's what they did. I was alerted earlier today when the update dropped from Milo's FPS on Twitter. He says, or she, I don't know. They, them, don't cancel me. Do they really think we are that stupid? In the recent update that came out today, they disabled the visual blood effect so they can cover up how terrible and awful the netcode and servers are.
I mean, yeah, this is like, so once again, that blood effect is like a byproduct, or once again, it's a side effect. It will show you how like laggy and latent the servers are, because if it's taking like a second and a half or whatever for the blood effect to play, that's a very visual indicator, a good visual indicator of how long the server is getting back before it's attempting to correct your client side game state. So yeah, it's just, they might be like disabling it. Well, obviously they want to fix it because they want to make the experience smoother, like, right? Because no one wants a laggy game. But the better thing would be also to fix that blood effect, and then also hopefully address the like poor quality servers and make them better to where there isn't even this like substantial amount of lag when it comes from the client like hearing back from the server.
When I saw this, I thought he was yanking my chain. She, they, them. I thought this person, can I say person? I thought this individual was yanking my chain, right? I thought they were just pulling my leg because I saw nothing else about it. And then I realized that they didn't report on it. They didn't mention it in the patch notes. It's nowhere to be found. Luckily, we have a guy in the community that does some deep dive testing. We have several guys, actually. I don't want to give credit just to him, but Freund is very analytical when it comes to this game. He's like the exclusive ace of getting to the bottom of netcode issues or whatever. And it's weird. You wouldn't think me being more on the conspiracy side and him would agree on things, but we actually agree quite a bit every time I've talked to him. And I've always said either the stuff they're doing is intentional and they're evil geniuses, or they're so incompetent that they're just dumb as fuck. It's
I mean, yeah, it's like either outcome is not good. Like obviously they're intentionally doing stuff, whether it be once again, skill-based damage kind of things that you're only noticing because of the poor quality servers, or it's more noticeable, which obviously is a very intentional thing. They could be intentionally like shorting the servers to spend the least amount of money possible, while like making people hopefully not complain, right? So I mean, obviously that's like that's a thing they're gonna try to do anyways. I can't knock them as a business for wanting to spend the least amount of money on the servers. But you would need to find that threshold to where it doesn't ruin the player experience. So that's kind of the problem here is they're obviously spending like not enough money. They need to scale them up in whatever way. And then the final piece is like, yeah, or the netcode. Like the servers could just very well be okay, but then the netcode is implemented in a way like an application layer that's causing problems, right? Because there's multiple layers to software or to the game, so to speak. There's like the application layer, the application code on the server, on the client. And then there's like the actual server that you're communicating with. How like powerful is it? And then there's your resources and your internet connection. And then all the enemies' resources and their internet connections. So there's a lot of factors. So where was I going with this? But yeah, I mean, whatever they're doing, it's either like it could just be a sense of purposeful like cheapskating, or a sense of maybe they don't know what they're doing, or whatever, or they're kind of using you guys as guinea pigs to test stuff before. Maybe they should have done this before, right? They should have maybe had a more thorough testing to make sure the servers aren't scaled down to like the bare minimum.
One or the other. It's oddly hard to tell. They're polar opposites, but it's really hard to tell what they're actually doing. But Freund says this: client-side blood effects appear to have been disabled in today's update.
I mean, yeah, so once again, like the visual indicator will be gone, but you can still kind of, I think you should be able to check about the hit marker, right? Like, because from what I saw before, the hit marker was coming, I mean, it's a client-side effect that's playing, but it's playing when the server gets back to you, if you actually hit the guy or not. So you can just see if your hit markers are lagging or not, to see like how long it's taking for the communication between you and the server to take place.
If we check his video that he puts up, he's got an intentional 1 second delay of lag, so you can see what we're talking about here. If you shoot and
okay, so you guys see that, right? Before blood effects were playing, and then if he's putting a 1 second delay on his client, that's like the client is taking 1 extra second to go out over the network to communicate with the server. Before, the blood effects would play instantaneously, which means it's a client side thing that's not waiting for their server to respond. But now, as we see here, they removed it, but the hit marker is still playing 1 second later, right? So it's like the hit marker is indeed coming back from the like server game state.
It's not registered on the server now. You don't get the blood effects. As far as I can tell, this changes nothing with the actual netcode, the actual hit reg, the actual...
Yeah, it doesn't... It's just a visual thing. Like, realistically, they should probably put... What they need to probably do is put the blood effect animation like at the same time as when the hit marker plays, so that it would come back. So obviously, if you're inducing like lag on your end, it's going to come back lagged. But in most normal cases, when there's not like lag going on, the blood effect would just play in tandem with the hit marker to where it's a more smoother experience, even if it's at the expense of a little bit more of a delay, right? But like hopefully your connection's good enough and everybody's connection's good enough to where it's like not that big of a deal. But once again, that's where the other problem could come in, is if it still is lagging, a lot and the hit markers are taking a while to register, it could be a indicator of poor like server quality or just bad netcode.
Desync, the skill-based damage rumors, yada yada. This does nothing except make it harder for people to tell when they're getting ghost bullets. That is it. That is the only thing.
Yeah, and then once again, there's a whole other layer of like, why is my shot not hitting? Like, so in that example that they're showing, obviously it's a client-side induced lag. So of course it makes sense that you're not going to hit until a second later because you're inducing lag on your end. To where where that player might not actually be there in game state. But like what I mean, like if there is no lag and you're still getting ghost bullets, right, then it kind of leads to the question of like, well, why am I getting ghost bullets? Like, is there some sort of skill-based damage or nerf that's happening in real time to take away my points despite me hitting this dude in physical space? So there is always that to be said.
I can fathom on why they would make this change. But what's really interesting about this is they didn't mention it in the patch notes. There was no mention of it in the patch notes. Nothing on Twitter that I could find. If I'm wrong here, please correct me. I don't want to be wrong covering this. I want to cover this as accurately as I can every step of the way. But can someone give me a logical reason?
I mean, I would... Oh, let's see what he says.
Other than they're trying to hide something by making this change, not bringing it up, and then throwing it out there.
Yeah, the thing for me is I would also check if I was BLAMETRUTH, like, do they normally release like bug fix patch notes? Because if they don't normally release bug fix patch notes, then it could just be that they just don't release bug fix patch notes and you're not going to know about the bugs they're fixing. But if they do normally do that and then they didn't include it, yeah, it's a little bit weird, right? It's like, well, why are you guys not including this one over all the other ones? That would be like one of the logical responses I could give. But it all kind of comes down to like what they what their normal cadence is for like release notes.
In fact, I think if I didn't make a video on this, I don't think anyone would even know. Like, is it just me that's deep diving this far into Activision and what they're doing now?
He's our unsung hero, BLAMETRUTH, going where no other man will go.
Oh, I think I am. I think I'm the only one going as far as...
And guys, yes, I know now that this, I believe, is X-Defiant and not Black Ops 6, because last time I was saying in my video, like, this doesn't even look like Call of Duty. But yes, I get it. This is X-Defiant.
I am going. I mean, I'm sort of obsessed. I feel like a detective or something. But regardless, I can't find any other reason you would make this change except to further gaslight the community, and not telling them just paints you as guilty. Not mentioning it at all paints you as incredibly guilty. You know, I've been wanting to...
Yeah, I think, once again, if we just check the release notes, do they normally include bug fixes? If they do and they're not showing it now, like this one's just missing, that's kind of suspect to me because, like, why are they not showing it? I mean, it could be, once again, they didn't want to bring attention to it because there could be some other kind of things they don't want you to know about and draw attention to, but it has the reverse impact because BLAMETRUTH is looking into it and he's making everybody very aware of it. So I'd be curious to see how Activision responds, or if somebody can just go and look at the release notes and tell me if they report on bugs or not. Because if they don't normally report on bugs, then it could just be a result of like laziness or just a process that they need to maybe start doing on release.
To make a video for a while, but I just have not had the time or the place to really throw it in. But I've been doing research on the side about the grenades in this game, in Black Ops 6 specifically. I've noticed some really weird things, and after gathering the appropriate data, I've come to the conclusion that something is off with all of this. What am I talking about? I watched a video just recently about Flak from Exclusive Ace, right? And Exclusive Ace is not on the conspiracy side, and he'll even try to debunk certain claims, you know, that the community has, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean there's not some correlation between the two based on his non-conspiracy finds. You know what I'm saying? So he made a video on Flak saying that this counters every explosive in the game, every like lethal explosive in the game, except frag grenades. Yeah. I'm just going to roll the clip for you here.
While you definitely see reduced damage taken when a frag goes off somewhat near you, if you're essentially right on top of a frag grenade, it will kill you when you're using Flak Jacket. There's no damage clamp taking place there. And this is where a lot of the frustration comes in. Flak Jacket works just fine against all of the other explosive equipment, but for some reason, not the frag grenade. So this just doesn't appear to be following the same rules that everything else is, and I honestly don't know if this is a bug or if this was intentional design to give some more utility to the frag grenade.
I mean, yeah, my 2 cents would be it's one of the two things that he just said where it's like it could just be a bug in the code where they somehow like the code that's normally being used for all other circumstances is not being used here, which is just a like indicator of not very dry code. Dry code just means don't repeat yourself. So there could be like 2 instances of code and one's a little bit different and it's operating differently here. Or it could be like an intentional thing since grenades are more like they're more frequently used in Call of Duty. So maybe they wanted to make the grenade a little bit stronger as opposed to like these other kind of like campy explosives or kill streak explosives and things like that. So maybe it's like an intentional design choice
Relative to the other equipment in the game.
Now, as far as I know, covering Treyarch games, specifically Treyarch Call of Duties, this has never been a thing. Treyarch fucking invented Flak Jacket, guys. They did. World at War, 2008. Look it up. Flak Jacket was made because people complained about 3 times frag in Call of Duty 4. What did Treyarch do?
Yeah, for those of you guys who don't know, back in the day, man, the 3 times frag off of spawn on like search and destroy especially was so annoying. If you had teams running that, like you literally could not walk out of your spawn on search and destroy if people knew the grenade spots because you just get lit up by grenades. It was like a mortar fire, man. It's too funny.
They said, we're not going to have that in our game. So they put in Flak Jacket and made it 2 times frag. Flak Jacket has been seen in the series ever since, and it's behaved pretty much the same way ever since then, in every Treyarch iteration at least, except this game, except Black Ops 6. Why? Why did this change? Every other game, it would stop a grenade no matter what. It would stop an explosive no matter what. So what changed? I've been wanting to cover this, and I've gathered so many clips, I'm just going to rattle them off for you. Let's just play the clips. Let's just fucking go, man. This is the only Call of Duty game I've personally seen, and I could be wrong, it could have happened in previous years, prior years, but this is the only one where I have seen grenades just so commonly go right through objects, go right through map geometry, roll into something, and kill enemy players.
Yeah, I saw one clip that was really suspect where it was like a heat-seeking grenade, like some dude threw the grenade, and it changed direction mid-air to go into like a window where there was a player. So that's just like wild. That could be like a buff or something for I don't know, let's pretend there's like a noob player in the like a newbie player in the lobby who's just like doing horrible. There could be some sort of like, once again, implementation where the grenade, while it's being thrown, is able to essentially like heat seek onto like close players within proximity, within a certain like radius. So that would be pretty funny if they're implementing that as well.
On either side of
yeah,
the
it was
wall.
this one, right? Yeah, this is one of them. I swear I've seen a few clips of this. This one's suspect to me because, I mean, the only other thing I could think of if it's like something to do with the like physics of like when you're moving in a certain direction and then you throw the grenade, maybe the code is jank or something to where it's like doing something weird with like the velocity of the grenade to where it thinks it's being thrown in a different like vector or something. I don't know. But to me, that's just a little suspect.
I mean, if I just showed you these clips in a vacuum and I said, what's going on, viewer? What would you say? You would say, this looks rigged. This looks either really, really buggy or incredibly rigged. It would probably be your 2, opinion pieces that you'd eventually decide upon. And it might seem like I'm just showing you this randomly, but what I'm showing you here is a pattern, okay? They have not addressed the grenades rolling into walls or whatever and killing people. They also haven't addressed the fact that Frags, for some reason, after a decade plus of it not doing it, suddenly just bypass Flak Jacket. It is a startling coincidence that a game where grenades can roll into map geometry and kill players on either side of said geometry, floor, wall, what have you, suddenly have free reign to do so because Flak Jacket isn't even a goddamn counter to them anymore.
I mean, there could be something to be said there of like, if there is some sort of, once again, skill-based damage or skill-based buff around these grenades where, let's say there's a newbie player in the lobby who's like 1 in 10 or something, or whatever his KD may be, or maybe he doesn't have any skins or whatever the situation is, and he throws the grenade and it's going close to somebody. Like the easier implementation would probably be, just disable flak jacket for grenades so we can kind of tweak around with this skill-based damage grenade system, as opposed to like dynamically checking and then dynamically disabling the flak jacket and then turning it back on kind of thing. It might have just been like an easier implementation to just like, hey, let's not even apply flak jacket to grenades, at least if they're like right on top of somebody. So I'm curious though. It's a little bit interesting because if it's a recycled game, most likely they're reusing old code and old logic. I mean, there's going to obviously be some updates depending on the engine that you're coding for, if it's like a different engine, but they could just like take the old logic and use the old logic. So it's like kind of interesting why they would change flak jacket functionality to suddenly stop working on grenades. And yeah, especially when there's like heat-seeking grenades apparently in the game, it seems.
A bit of an odd coincidence in a game where the rumors of skill-based damage and rigging and manipulation are at an all-time high. It's a bit odd, I think, just a bit peculiar, that no Treyarch dev, no Activision employee, no fucking COD updates, Twitter LARP has said anything about this, has said anything about the netcode.
Maybe the grenades are taking over the hunter killer drone in Black Ops 2 code or something, to where it's like automatically heat seeking and finding you guys.
Has addressed skill-based damage whatsoever. They are radio silent when it takes them 15 seconds to just communicate with us. 15 motherfucking goddamn seconds!
I mean, this is probably just like a issue of just big corporate gaming, right? Like if it was like an indie company or if it was like a solo dev like myself, like I'd probably be trying to get back to the community as fast as possible. But these big companies, dude, it's like a whole thing of politics almost, where you have to have like a PR team before you can even respond to stuff, and you got to be very, very careful about what you say because you need to be very coordinated in your efforts to like not leak information, to not say something that the higher ups don't want you to say, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of times they're probably not even allowed to say anything, and there's a dedicated team of people that are the ones leading the social media and like what is allowed to be said. And then sometimes they could just get backlogged and not mention stuff, or sometimes they're going to intentionally avoid things. So yeah, it's just one of the downsides of like bigger corporations and communication, right?
That's all it takes! And they can't even do it. It's a bit odd! It's all I'm saying. I mean, it's just sheer laziness or it's evil genius. I can't tell which one it is. It's one of the two. It might even...
It's both.
Be a combination of both.
Yeah.
But the fact that this came out today, that this blood visual effect change came out today, and they said not a fucking peep about it after their initial tweet, says all I need to know. You know, one of these things happens and it's a coincidence. Two different things I'm showing you here where they haven't said a word about it, and it's either rigged or they're just dumb as fuck. Says all I need to know. I'm going to go with rigged. I'm just going to go with rigged. And I could be wrong. I could be egregiously wrong. Yeah, I could be. But how are they going to prove me wrong? I think legitimately, from what I've seen, all I've seen, it is more logical to go with them doing something nefarious when they don't speak up about this stuff and they're not forthright with us. I think it's more logical to assume that they are doing something nefarious on the back end. That's what I truly believe. I've showed you literally countless examples of them lying, gaslighting, not being truthful, not mentioning things, hiding things from us.
So I was like thinking about something. The only other thing I could think about with grenades is if it's another netcode thing, to where maybe at the time of you throwing the grenade, like you see a player on your screen, but maybe the game state, like the real game state from the server, is like it knows that the player is actually not in that place that you thought you saw him. So the only other thing I could think of is if it's like correcting the grenade trajectory to be where the player actually is, because it's maybe somehow awarding you with the throw. Because it's like, okay, you threw your grenade at this moment in time, and you did see that guy on your screen at that specific moment in time, but he's not actually there anymore. So we're gonna change the trajectory a little bit to be where he actually is, or close to where he is, to kind of make it a fair experience for the grenade that you just threw. That's the only thing I could think of, because once again, grenades are not real time when it comes to like physics. Like with the guns in Call of Duty, it's ray. I always mix these up. Ray casting, to where it's like an instantaneous feedback kind of thing from when you shoot your gun. But grenades have like a travel distance, travel time, et cetera, like a velocity and everything. So that's the only thing I could think of where it's like an attempt to make the experience smoother. Not the clipping of the grenades through the walls. That's kind of suspect. But that's my only like devil's advocate kind of position I could think of. Sorry, I was just kind of randomly thinking of that as he was speaking.
I have to say this again. They made devs sign NDAs not to talk about their matchmaking system for 5 years before finally addressing it. And then when they did address it, they weren't even entirely truthful about it. Just recently, we have caught them. They haven't said this. We have caught them using generative AI to sell us stuff in bundles. Generative AI for art in the game. We caught them doing it. They didn't say it. They weren't open about it. We caught them.
Yeah, they'll never be open about that, I would imagine. Like, unless the stigma around it goes away, they'll probably never be open about it. They're just going to put it in the game, and then it is what it is. Because like obviously the assumption there would be if there's AI in the game for art, that most likely means a lot of the graphic designers were probably let go, and it's probably like a handful of graphic designers now using like AI to generate the little calling cards and then all the images that you see and then the aesthetics and everything, et cetera, et cetera.
And they still haven't admitted it. And you're gonna sit there and tell me you trust them.
Yeah, I would never just, in general, a good rule of thumb is do not trust big corporations, not even in gaming, right? It comes to anything. At the end of the day, like, profit is king, and all of these companies care about is profits, profit margins, and like popularity, et cetera, et cetera. They don't care about the actual consumer. It's always about how much can we make off of the consumer while like preserving our image to the consumer. Right, it's like this constant balancing process of trying to like cut profits or not cut profits, but cut like quality of product for the sake of profit in hopes that the consumer doesn't realize, kind of thing. So that's just like the general nature of big corporations when it comes to anything. Every once in a while, you'll get a company or a big corporation or maybe a smaller company, right, that actually does care about its consumers, and that's always a good thing. But I would not let that be I would not let it be the standard or the rule of thumb that, I should just automatically trust these big corporations. They have what's best for me. I mean, you can see it with anything, dude. Like, look at like back in the day with like smoking advertisements before, like they knew that stuff was cancerous and was it carcinogen or however you say that. But like they don't care. They're going to sell you the product anyway, even though it's literally killing you. I mean, look at the fast food industry. You'll see like food being marketed in a way that looks like it's healthy in terms of the packaging and what they're saying. They'll put keywords on stuff to make it seem healthy, but if you look at the ingredients, it's not. Like, it's huge. Yeah, it's very prevalent in all industries. There's like big pharma too, et cetera, et cetera.
To do the right thing behind the scenes. Like, would you literally, okay, let's say you own your house. I know it's a pipe dream in 2024. Let's say you own your house. Would you, as a content creator, as a Call of Duty content creator, let's just say, would you bet your house on them not rigging something on the back end? You have to.
No, sir. Yeah, I would never bet that. I would definitely lean more on the side of something shady is going on. Even if I had no development background and didn't know if it's possible or not, I still wouldn't bet on that, right? But knowing what I know is possible, like, absolutely not.
To admit it's a possibility, because I guarantee you the majority of people logically would say, no, I would not bet my house on that.
Yeah, and I think the main thing for me, it's not even the main things for me are like the way they responded to the community with the self-answered questions, and then the fact that those patents exist. Like, I don't know if they're in use, not in use, whatever, but the fact that those even exist shows that there is some sort of intellectual like property there that they're trying to preserve. So it's not like you just do that willy-nilly, arbitrarily, right, with nothing to back it. So those are the ones that are the most suspect to me. And then on top of that, there's all these little like nuances in the game that we're seeing that are very, very suspect.
You know it's possible. I know it's possible. I could just show you some inconsistencies that raise a lot of questions at the end of the day. That's all I can do. You are welcome to draw your own conclusions after that, but I would not trust these motherfuckers for a second.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing, guys. Like, obviously, BLAMETRUTH is very in his opinion, right? And he's very passionate about it. But even he's saying himself, like, don't listen to me. I'm going to present you the evidence, and then you can make the decision for yourself. And I think that's always an important thing is, like, don't believe it because BLAMETRUTH says it or because I say it. You have to, like, look at the instances of the evidence yourself and then come to a conclusion. And that's generally the case on everything, guys. Like, don't just because somebody says something or a group of people says something doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's not true. Always try to, like, look into it yourself. If it's something that you're passionate about, right? Like, if it's something you just don't care about, then obviously it doesn't really matter. So I think that's good of him to call that out, to, like, say, hey guys, like, yeah, I'm passionate about this, but, you know, here's the evidence. You make your own decision, kind of thing.
Just as an example to close out this video here, okay? We know for a fact that the voice actors that have been with Treyarch for like over a decade, I think they've been there since World at War, I heard. The voice actors that have been working with Treyarch for more than a decade on zombies recently quit due to lack of AI protection, like AI voice copying protection in their contracts working with Activision.
Yeah, this one's crazy to me. This one is the most, like, ridiculous. I mean, these are people who have been at the company for a long time, probably signed some sort of contract that basically signed their likeness over to them, with whether they realized it or not. And then now they are basically going to have their voices being used, technically by their consent, because they probably signed these contracts. But, like, what's to stop Activision from essentially firing them and then just taking their voice and then using it for whatever they want, right? That's the problem here. And if it gets to that point where, like, every corporation is basically forcing voice actors to sign these kind of contracts, so it's like where you can't even get a job unless you sign your likeness away, that's an overall problem for... That's like that just screams that there needs to be some sort of, like, protection laws or regulation in place to prevent, you know, companies in general from doing that, like essentially forcing you into a contract that ultimately makes you obsolete in the long run. So that is a very, very big problem. I mean, I think it should be, in my opinion, I've said this before, that it should be a licensing fee or like a royalty or something that gets paid back to the original voice actors. And then, or they just aren't allowed to use the voice, like, without their permission, even if they signed a contract like 10 years ago, or even if it was recently. I mean, just with all this AI stuff that's coming out, I think there needs to be some sort of, like, regulation in this space to protect, once again, individuals.
They left the franchise after this long because it's that scummy. Okay? Mm-hmm. That happened just recently. Call of Duty Activision actually contacted Nero Cinema, good buddy of mine, and they wanted to use one of his clips, or like some video they were making or something, and they needed him to sign off on this contract. But when you actually read the contract, it mentions being able to use his voice for future AI stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what they put it in the fine print, or they'll probably pay Nero like a good amount of money. It's like an ultimatum of, like, hey, you want to partner with us? Well, then you better sign your soul over to the devil, so to speak, right? And it puts you in, like, a rock and a hard place, especially if you were, like, I mean, I think Neros is doing pretty well, right? It seems like he's got a, you know, big channel. But imagine if it gets to a point where, like, your sole source of income is whether you make this decision or not. So you just sign the papers. Yeah, you get some money and profit off of it in the short term, but then they screw you over in the long term. So it's just crazy, man.
Was going to be, right? They take those snippets from my reviews, they put them in their social media videos, and there you go. It's just part of, like, a little bit of a trailer or montage or whatever that they're going to put together. Well, then it gets a bit weirder. Activision may sub-license the foregoing rights in connection with the development, manufacture, marketing, promotion, distribution, sale, and other exploitation of the foregoing. The video game is M-rated. So there is a reference here, and again, I don't speak legalese whatsoever, but there is a reference where they can sub-license those rights from this campaign potentially to other things, it seems like. And for clarity, the foregoing grant of rights shall include use on any platforms, systems, devices, and media, including internet, television, and print uses, which means the ad can go anywhere, all whether now existing or hereafter created, and use in movie, television adaptations, journal articles, professional presentations, and archival, corporate branding, and other Activision business purposes. Basically, it seems like they can sub-license their perpetual, worldwide, royalty-free right to use my likeness across everything, essentially. essentially. They go on to also say that they're going to be the sole and exclusive owners of all right, title, and interest, including all intellectual property and proprietary rights, and into the products and uses and the materials. The products and uses are going to be the campaign, and the materials are going to...
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that just should not be allowed. Like, it should be that, okay, you're allowed to put this in the contract, but it should, in my opinion, be very, very obvious, or it should be where it's mandatory to pay royalties or whatever it may be back to the individual, or I might be getting my terminology wrong, royalties, licensing fee, whatever, back to the individual who has the voice. Because if you don't put this in place, what's stopping all bigger corporations that are hiring voice actors from doing this kind of stuff and just taking advantage of people? Like, it might not be a big problem if one company does it or two companies do it, etc., because you can always go to a different company as a voice actor. But if every company's doing it, then it's a problem. And it can very quickly lead to that if it becomes the standard without any like regulation or anything.
To be Black Ops 6 as well as Warzone. No, I'm not signing this, man. I don't want anything to do with this. It's just,
good for him.
I feel like I'm just signing my soul over to the devil for me.
Yeah, I just said, bro, signing your soul to the devil, right? It's literally no different.
Right? The meme would be seeing me in some sort of a trailer, knowing it's me and how critical I am of Call of Duty in most of the videos I post here in the channel. It'd be kind of interesting to see that happen. A lot of you guys would have gotten a laugh out of it. It would have been funny. I am not signing a worldwide, perpetual, royalty-free right and license to use my name and likeness as part of this campaign or any other campaign or whatever else they plan on doing.
I'm not making any of that up.
I mean, what's even scarier, dude? Watch YouTube come out with like something, or where they're like, hey, you can't post on our platform unless you allow us the like rights to your likeness or something for our AI training. That could be a very real thing that's coming, and if it's not already happening, you know what I mean? Like, they're probably already training on our data. But that's also very scary, to where if you even want to make a living as a YouTuber, you might have to sign away your rights. So hopefully that does not happen, but corporate greed, man.
By the way, that's a legit thing that happened. If they really wanted to, they could get Nero's voice and put him in Call of Duty as a character, not pay him a damn thing, and just have him there if they really wanted to. They could probably make like a separate channel using Nero's AI voice and have him just do nothing but slob on Call of Duty's knob constantly if they wanted to. I mean, guys, I'm not making any of this up. All this stuff happened. What? You're gonna trust these people? You're gonna trust them to do the right thing? You're gonna believe 100% without a shadow of a doubt that they are not capable?
Guys, if I ever get to making my side project my game, and if it somehow takes off and is successful, I swear I will not do any of this stuff, bro. I'm gonna keep it grassroots. And I'm gonna make sure none of this bullcrap is ever in my game. No skill-based damage, no skill-based matchmaking, none of this like shady contract kind of stuff. I would want to do something that benefits like myself, obviously, in terms of like making the game good and hopefully financially doing well. But I would also want to do something that like benefits everybody else that would potentially be like onboarded to the team or the community or whatever it may be. So there's hope out there, man. People do care and don't want this kind of stuff happening. We just kind of got to make it a reality, hopefully. But anyways,
Of rigging something when they've been rigging the ship for the past 5 years, the matchmaking portion at least. Come on, please. I'm out of time though, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Rate, comment, and subscribe.
I mean, it was a good video. That was a very good video with a lot of good information. So that's all I got, guys. But until the next time.